Hi guys, it's Didi here, and today we're gonna talk about tantrums. Most parents have experienced that with their toddlers when they will burst into tears over seemingly unimportant things, or they arch their backs, they throw themselves onto the floor, kicking and crying. And this is what we call tantrums. It happens in between 18 months of age up until 4 years of age, and the usual time is between 2 and 3 years. Most parents use different strategies to cope with tantrums. Some are ignoring them completely, others are sympathizing to their kids, and some parents react with anger and punishment. Today, I'm going to share with you how the attachment parenting suggests we deal with tantrums, and also my own experience with them. When we're dealing with tantrums, there are 3 things we need to remember. First is that behavior is driven by emotion, not by logic. People tend to act based on their emotions and then they justify them through logic, but kids purely act out of their emotions. Second is that tantrums do not have to rule the early lives of our children, and they provide us an opportunity to show and offer our unconditional love and guidance. And the third thing is that tantrums provide us a learning opportunity to connect and communicate better with our kids. It's important to know what tantrum is for our kids and what triggers it. It's a matter of brain development and matter of self-control. And our kids don't know how to self-control their emotions yet because their brain is not ready. Lots of parents use logic in the middle of the tantrum, and this is simply not going to work. And it's also important to know what triggers the tantrum. Does it happen at the same time of the day? Is there something in the usual routine of the child that has been disturbed? For example, they're frustrated with something in the nursery, or mom is going back to work, or they're coming down with a cold, they're overwhelmed, they are sleep deprived, they're hungry. These are things that we need to watch for and learn and observe our kids so that we can know when is more likely for them to throw a tantrum. The second thing is to know what sort of tantrum our kid is throwing. Tantrums are different depending on their intensity and also depending on the fact whether the higher brain or lower brain gets engaged. For example, there is something called drama tantrum or acting tantrum, where your child is acting in a way that they feel stressed and overwhelmed, but they in fact are not really that stressed. We will know that this is the drama or acting tantrum because if you give in and give what your child wants, they'll stop crying immediately, which means that they are still in charge of their emotions. The strategy for dealing with this sort of tantrum is not to give in and to simply say no, not to ignore the child, which some parenting experts suggest you to do, but to recognize their feeling, to say, okay, I understand you may be really frustrated, maybe it's really hard for you that I'm not giving you to play with this toy. I understand that, but still the answer would be no. And sooner or later, your child, who is using cognition, using their higher brain, the frontal lobe in this case, would know that simply this strategy doesn't work, and you see less and less and less of this happening. The second tantrum, though, is so-called the stressed tantrum, or also downstairs tantrum, in the book The Whole Brain Child by Daniel Siegel. And when our children experience this sort of tantrum, they are not in charge of their emotions. They get so stressed, so anxious, so fearful, so frustrated over something that their amygdala takes over, their brain and body is flooded with stressed chemicals, and they're not able to pull themselves together. In this case, it is very important for us to help them calm down and nurture them and soothe them down rather than use logic. Lots of parents, although they see their kids in this situation, will try still to explain to them why they say no or why they are justifying their behavior in a certain way, but this simply doesn't work when your child is in this situation because they're completely deaf. They don't hear you. Whatever you say, they don't hear anything. So how you can help your child to get out of this situation if they're throwing this tantrum? You have to try different strategies depending on your communication with your child or the temperament of your child. But usually you have to hold them tight, you have to talk to them in a very smooth and nice and hugging voice. You have to tell them, okay, I understand how you feel, it must be really bad for you, let's get out of here. If you're in the middle of the shop or a supermarket or on the street, let's go to a quieter place. Just hold them and explain to them that you are there for them, you understand their feelings, and don't mention anything about their behavior at this stage. They need to be more receptive for that to happen. Other strategies you can use something which in NLP we call pattern interruption. For example, you need to do something which is so sudden, so surprising, so unexpected from your child that they change their emotional states from being upset, being anxious to being surprised, startled, and then from there you can change it to whatever emotional state you want them to lead them. Pattern interruption works very well with the first drama tantrums, where you can do something very silly. You can throw yourself on the floor next to them, start jumping like them, doing mirroring and matching their behavior, and they'll be like, what's going on, what's mommy doing? And not always would work with the downstairs brain tantrum, with the full tantrum, because they may not even able to see what you're doing. You can try, it depends on the intensity of the tantrum. Another thing you can try is something called changing the state through accessing IQs. In NLP, we talk about how people process information and access information by moving their eyes. For example, if they look up, this is usually accessing visual information. If they look laterally, this is auditory. And when they look down, it's kinesthetic. Kinesthetic means feeling. So when your child is very stressed, very distressed, and even you can use that for yourself, and crying all the time, it's important for you to make sure that you can ask them to look up. So you can use your fingers or something so that they move literally their eyes up, and that can help them get out of the kinesthetic and feeling state. Another strategy that you can use is from Dr. Harvey Card, who wrote The Happiest Toddler on the blog, and he talks about something called speaking toddlerese. And speaking toddlerese means that you start talking to them, responding to them using very short phrases, repetitively, and mirroring and matching their energy levels. So what does he mean by that? If your child starts screaming, I want cookies, no, I want cookies, what you have to do in this case is to say, cookies, you want cookies, you really want cookies? We cannot give you cookies. So you mirror and match their behavior, you still make sure you don't give up on whatever their demands are, but by matching their behavior, you are getting into their level. For him, toddlers are cave children, so they're uncivilized and they're primitive, and we need to tell them, I get it, I feel for you, I understand you, in the way that they can understand really. And lots of parents say that works for them, and in fact, I've been using that with Mika without knowing about this approach. Not exactly in the same way, but always processing in short sentences whatever I want to communicate to him. So I want to share my experience with tantrums. First, I don't really call them tantrums, and I would rather call them emotional storms, and I really understand why kids are going through this. I am so much more compassionate for them, knowing that their brain is going through so much development at that stage of their life. They're absorbing languages, motions, they're learning everything about the environment. They're going through a phase when they start understanding themselves and accepting themselves that they're separate individual. That's the time when the I can declarations come out. And I know that sometimes we parents throw tantrums. It's so hard for us to manage our own state sometimes. What about our little kids? So I am very compassionate when Mika is distressed about something. And my own experience with tantrums is that, first of all, I put myself into his shoes. Wherever we are, I know sometimes it's very hard when I'm not in a good place myself, but I try to see the world from his point of view. He doesn't have the concept of time, he doesn't have the concept of money, of expensive, of being in a hurry. So how can I communicate something to him in a way that he can understand me? And the tantrums that we have, again, they're not exactly tantrums, but for example, he'll stop in the middle of the park and say, I want to go a different direction. Or he would say, I don't want to get dressed for going out. Or I don't care, we're in a hurry, I need to take my time. So every time when he does something which I don't want and he starts crying or moaning about it, I put myself in his shoes and say, okay, are we out because of him? And if that's the case, I give in the sense of that I pick up my battles. Or we are out because I have some work to do. And in the second case, when I know that we have to be in a hurry for the doctor's appointment or wherever we are going, I spend a lot of time in advance preparing him for this experience. For example, the day before I will tell him, tomorrow morning we need to be up early, Mika, because you're gonna go to see the GP, you have doctor's appointment. Do you remember last time when we went? So I'll be talking about that all the time the night before. In the morning I'll keep repeating to him. Or another example, if we were to go do some shopping and I know that for him it's very boring, I prepare him in advance saying, oh, and tomorrow we need to do some shopping and I know you need to come with me, but you need to be prepared, it's going to be probably not that interesting for you. So are you willing to come with me? So every time I explain those things to him, when he acts in a way that, for example, he stops in the middle of the street, I just remind him, you remember mommy told you today we're really in a hurry, we need to really get going. So that's what helps me a lot. The second thing that helps me a lot is I am a huge fan of building good habits. For those of you that are watching my channel, you know that I talk about habits all the time because habits pay off dramatically in the future. So for me, it's important that he has a good base, and I put so good habits into a place that I don't have to deal with any tantrums in the future. For example, for years I was thinking, what are the usual cases when kids would throw a tantrum? Usually they want a toy, or they want something to eat, which they're not allowed to eat, or they don't want any other child to touch their toys. So there are circumstances or situations that are usual for kids to throw a tantrum. So I said, okay, I'm not gonna build a habit to buy him any toys. Whenever we're out and he wants toy, I just don't buy him toys, and he knows that I don't buy toys, and less and less and less he would want me to buy toys. In a similar way, I build habits around almost everything at home. He helps with the toys, he helps with putting the table on and taking the plates back to the kitchen. We have the habits that he cannot eat in his pajama, at least when he is with me, because with Daddy it doesn't happen the same way. And I put the habits into a place knowing that we have certain routines that we need to follow. Otherwise, my life would be much harder. And it hasn't been always easy, guys. I mean, some people, when they see my communication with Mika, would say, oh, it's easy for you because Mika is listening to you and Mika is helping you. Really? Like, I put so much effort into this since he was 6 months old. I knew that there are certain behaviors and certain patterns that if he gets into them, I will need to break, and I was very careful how I build these habits for him. So it's not that it's happening overnight, it's not that I'm lucky because Mika is listening to me all the time. He's actually a very strong-willed child, but it's because of the environment. And I see lots of parents complaining, moaning about their kids' behavior and saying, oh, it's all down to genes, it's all down to temperament and to character. But I'm sorry, I don't completely agree with that, because it's as much as it's about the character, it's equally important to build the right habits right from the beginning. To take responsibilities for our kids' behavior and to teach them how to express their emotion, to help them build the right habits right from the beginning, and most importantly, to be their example. And the last thing I want to say is be aware of the language we use, not only during the tantrums, but before. Because we parents tend to overuse the no. We tend to say no, no, no all the time, to the point that our kids don't even listen to us anymore. The no becomes as a background noise. There are ways to change the negative language to the positive one. For example, instead of telling them, don't jump on the sofa, tell them, just sit. Instead of telling them, don't run, you're gonna fall, tell them, can you please walk slowly? Don't stand on the table, sit on the table. So there are ways we can become more aware of the language we use, so that we can use no in a very limited occasions, in specific ways, so that they can react to it rather than ignore it completely. And last thing is, some people would say ignore tantrums. I personally disagree with that. Tantrums should not be ignored. Neither you should use bribe or rewards for your kids' behavior, because if you get yourself into negotiations, into promise them something and bribing them for their behavior, then at a certain time, at a certain stage, this will stop working. And then you're giving the wrong message to your child that if they behave in a way that you like, then maybe they'll get something which they like. So don't do any negotiations, any bribes, any rewards. Help them express their feelings, talk all the time, verbalize it for them. You must be feeling really angry. You must be feeling really frustrated. Oh, I understand how annoyed you are. What I say to Mika is, oh, it's so hard sometimes to be a little child. I know how hard it is. And then just hug them tight and help them get out of this tantrum stage. That's it from me, sweet moms and dads. I hope you really like this video and find it useful. If so, please give me a thumb up, share with your friends, and most importantly, leave me a comment in the comment box below. Let me know, how do you deal with the tantrums of your kids, and what are some of the strategies that work for you. Thank you so much for watching. Jump on my webpage, smartparentstories.com, and join my newsletter, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye!